It all started with a quiet afternoon by the lake behind my house. The water was calm, the sun was setting, and I had my fishing rod in hand, just trying to enjoy a peaceful moment in my own neighborhood. But apparently, peace and fishing weren't allowed. A few days later, I got a letter from the HOA, a fine, for fishing on a lake that was technically part of the community, but backed right up to my yard. I couldn't believe it. At first, I thought it was a mistake. But no, according to the rules, fishing wasn't authorized. That's when things took a turn. See, instead of getting angry or paying the fine quietly, I decided to get creative. If they didn't want me fishing for free, maybe they'd be okay paying me to fish. It started as a joke, but the more I thought about it, the more real it became. I did some digging, made a few calls, and before long, I had a plan. One they definitely didn't see coming. Let's just say, the same lake they fined me for using. I turned it into a legit fishing resort, with permits, signs, and yes, a daily entry fee. But the best part, guess who had to pay to get in? Stick around, because that's where things really got interesting. At first, I couldn't believe how far the HOA was going with these rules. I'd lived there for years, never causing any problems, just enjoying the simple things, like fishing on a lake that I could practically see from my front porch. But apparently, that was too much for them. They had this long list of community guidelines, and fishing on the lake wasn't exactly in the rules. But the lake was wasn't it? At least, that's what they thought. I'm not the type to back down easily, especially when I know something isn't right. So I began to look into the bylaws, zoning permits, and anything I could find. It didn't take long for me to realize that the HOA didn't technically own the lake. It was public land, managed by the local government, and the HOA didn't have the authority to stop anyone from fishing there. That's when I knew I had a chance to turn the tables. I reached out to local businesses, checked with the town about the necessary permits, and even talked to a couple of local fishermen who were interested in the idea. Slowly, my plan began to take shape. I wasn't just going to fish anymore, I was going to charge for it. I had everything lined up: signs, entry fees, a website, and the best part, the HOA had no idea what was coming. The question was, how would they react when I set up shop right in their backyard? The day I set up the signs, I could feel the tension in the air. I wasn't just launching a fishing venture, I was challenging the authority of the HOA. The first day, I sat by the lake waiting. It wasn't busy yet, but word started to spread quickly. People walking their dogs stopped to ask what was going on. I explained the new setup, and to my surprise, some of the neighbors were interested. One guy, John, even joked, "I've been wanting to fish here for years. Glad someone finally figured out how to make it legal." But not everyone was on board. The HOA, of course, was furious. It didn't take long before I got a call from one of their representatives. The tone was sharp. "You're disrupting the community," they said. "This isn't a fishing resort, it's a residential neighborhood." I knew they'd fight back, but I wasn't prepared for how personal they'd get. They started spreading rumors that I was running an illegal operation and that people who paid to fish might be violating zoning laws. They even contacted some of my neighbors, trying to convince them to sign petitions against it. The whispers started to turn into full-blown pressure. But the more they pushed, the more stubborn I became. Still, it wasn't just about the money or getting back at them anymore. It was about standing up for my right to enjoy my property. The HOA had always played the role of the big bad guy, but now they were coming for something I loved, and that only made me more determined to fight back. As the days passed, things started getting heated. A group of my neighbors, people I'd known for years, came to me privately, asking what I was doing. Some were supportive, others cautious. "What if they escalate this?" One of them, Sarah, warned. "You're stirring the pot, and they won't stop until they've crushed you." But I wasn't backing down. Not now. Not after all this. The deeper I got into it, the more personal this fight became. Would I win, or was I about to start a war that might be impossible to finish? Only time would tell. Things were heating up faster than I expected. The HOA's threats became more frequent, and soon, I was getting calls from neighbors I hadn't even spoken to in months. Some were furious, others confused. A few even stopped by the lake to confront me directly. It wasn't just about the fishing anymore. It was about me challenging the HOA's authority, and that made people uneasy. The once peaceful community was starting to crack. Then, one afternoon, things took a sharp turn. I was setting up for a new fishing session when a group of HOA board members showed up. I recognized them immediately: Mr. Lawson, the head of the board, and a couple of others who had always been the loudest voices against anyone who broke the rules. They were standing at the edge of the lake, arms crossed, waiting for me. "Enough is enough," Mr. Lawson said, his voice cutting through the air. "This ends today. You're breaking multiple codes, and we're shutting you down." He pulled out a piece of paper and started reading through a list of violations. I could tell they'd been planning this for weeks. But it wasn't just about shutting down the fishing operation. They wanted to crush me, make an example of me. I could see it in their eyes. They weren't going to stop until I was out of the picture completely. But I wasn't ready to back down. Not now, not after everything I built. The tension was thick, and I could feel it in the pit of my stomach. My neighbors, who had once supported me, were now standing off to the side, watching. I could tell they were divided. Some were just waiting for the HOA to come in and make things right. Others were looking to me, waiting for my next move. And then, as I stood there, facing off with the board, a truck pulled up behind them. It was a local government vehicle, marked with a logo I recognized. My heart skipped a beat. What were they doing here? Was this the end of it? Had the HOA finally called in the big guns? The board members froze, their faces turning pale. I took a deep breath. The last few days had felt like a battle, but I was ready for whatever came next. The storm was about to hit, and I had no idea if I'd survive it. The truck parked just behind the HOA board members, and I could see the logo more clearly now. It was from the local zoning office. My mind raced. Was this a government official coming to side with the HOA? Or had something gone wrong with my permits? I didn't know, but the sight of that truck made my stomach drop. Mr. Lawson's smug expression faltered for a second, and I could see the others stiffen. The government official, a woman in her mid-40s with short dark hair, stepped out and walked toward the group. She glanced at me for a moment, then turned to face the HOA board. "Mr. Lawson," she said, her voice calm but authoritative, "I need to have a word with you." For a second, the tension in the air was unbearable. The HOA members exchanged confused looks, clearly thrown off by her presence. But then, with a nod, Mr. Lawson gestured toward her. The two of them moved off to the side, speaking in low voices, but their body language was hard to ignore. Lawson seemed rattled. Something was off. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but the fact that the zoning officer was here felt wrong. Was she here to shut me down? I didn't know. But the more I watched, the more my gut told me that the story wasn't over yet. And then, just as the conversation seemed to be wrapping up, the woman turned to me and gave a slight nod, signaling that I should join them. My heart skipped. Was this it? Was she about to tell me everything I'd worked for was about to be torn down? I took a step forward, but before I could say anything, Mr. Lawson turned to me with a look that sent a shiver down my spine. "You're not going to like what happens next," he said coldly. I could feel the weight of his words. The board had already tried to make me look like the bad guy in this whole situation, but now, I had the sinking feeling they weren't just after my fishing resort. They were after something bigger. And as the zoning officer and the board huddled, I couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to drop a bombshell that would change everything. My knees felt weak. This wasn't just a fight for fishing rights anymore. It was turning into a battle that could destroy everything I had worked for. The moment I stepped toward the group, I could feel the air growing heavier. The HOA board members were still standing together, whispering among themselves, casting nervous glances my way. The government official, who had introduced herself as Karen, turned to face me with a neutral expression. Mr. Lawson was tight-lipped, his face pale. I could almost hear my heart pounding in my chest.